Amelia had seen it from the beginning. The abandoned mansion loomed at the edge of their small town, stories whispered for generations. Some claimed it was once owned by a wealthy man who went mad, others that it was cursed from the very moment it was built. The most popular tale, though, was of a room with no windows, no doors, just shadows that moved on their own. Amelia never believed the stories, chalking them up to folklore. But one October night, restless and seeking a thrill, she and her friends dared each other to go to the mansion and find that room. Armed with flashlights, she led the way, her curiosity mixed with the cold thrill of fear. The front door hung ajar, an invitation into the stale air inside. Dust coated every surface, thick enough to muffle their footsteps. The house was eerily silent, the kind that presses on your ears until they ring. After wandering through endless rooms, sitting rooms with dust-covered furniture, a dining room with a table set but rotting, they found it. The entrance to the shadow room. The walls were painted a deep, dark green, and the floor was covered in a thick carpet the color of blood. At first, it appeared like an ordinary room, except for the walls, which absorbed all light like a void, making the rest of the room look dim, even with the flashlights. Then Amelia noticed the shadows. One by one, they seemed to come to life, slithering along the walls. Each moved independently, but they had a strangely human shape. Some tall, others hunched, none of them moving like anything she'd ever seen. They flickered in and out like old film projections, jittering from one pose to the next, their heads slowly turning toward her and her friends. Liam, her closest friend, laughed nervously. "It's just shadows," he said, stepping into the room. But his laugh was hollow. They all felt it. The air was cold, colder than the rest of the house, and a faint smell of something metallic hung around them. Liam's face twisted in fear when he saw the largest shadow, a massive figure with long skeletal arms, start to inch closer to him. As it approached, the shadow separated from the wall and stretched, hovering above him. The light from their flashlights did nothing to diminish its shape. It wasn't a shadow anymore. It was something else. Something reaching from beyond the wall's surface, fingers curling like long skeletal claws as it stretched out toward Liam. Amelia screamed, but her voice was swallowed by the room. The others scrambled to the doorway, desperate to pull Liam out, but his body wouldn't budge. His face had gone pale, frozen in a silent scream as the figure's dark hands wrapped around him. One by one, they began to see things, the twisted shadow people's hands, reaching out from the walls, touching, pressing, pushing toward each of them. One friend, Chloe, tried to wrench Liam free, only for a shadow to grab her arm, pulling her in until her skin turned a sickly shade of grey. Her eyes rolled back as if something was draining her life force. Amelia screamed again, yanking her friend back with every ounce of strength, and felt the life drain from her own hands as they touched the icy skin. Suddenly, the room went black. Amelia felt the cold seeping into her bones as the shadows closed in, wrapping around her limbs and face. She couldn't breathe, couldn't move as she felt the touch of something wet, icy alive pressing against her skin, whispering incoherent things into her ear. It was as though thousands of voices were murmuring to her from deep within a void, promises of eternal sleep, of rest in darkness. And just like that, she was back in her body, lying on the floor. The room was empty. She looked around, dazed. The flashlights lay scattered, their beams faintly illuminating the walls, but her friends were gone. There was nothing but the dust and the shadows and the terrible silence. She stumbled out of the house, somehow making her way back to town. She tried to tell people, but no one believed her. And no one saw her friends again. Amelia never went back to the mansion. But on cold October nights, when the wind was still, she could swear she saw shadows moving just out of sight, inching closer, reaching for her, waiting for her to return to the shadow room.